Mike Rodriguez versus Danilo Marques. We got minus 220 on slow Mike Rodriguez and plus 185 on the sophomore Danilo Marques. Let's start off with Danilo Marques, who is, like I said, coming into his second fight in the second fight in the UFC. He comes off a successful debut against Khadis Ibragimov way back at UFC 253 in September. I believe they were the current jerker that night, and luckily for him, he's able to go out there and beat Khadis via decision. Now, that's a fight that I took the under 2.5 in as one of my main plays, as I expected either Khadis to go out there and get him out early, or if this fight were to drag on, I thought that would see Danilo get this fight to the ground and pull off a submission over Khadis. However, neither came to fruition. Probably one of the sloppiest fights we've ever seen over there at Fight Island, and Danilo comes out with his hand raised in that fight. Now, the reason I'm so low on Danilo and why I consider him to probably be the worst fighter in the UFC, I'm sure there's a couple of guys out there that are willing to raise their hand to, well, not willing to raise their hand to take that award, but I thought Khadis was. But Khadis goes out there and proves that he was the worst fighter in the UFC, and I'm pretty sure he got cut as well. So now it's Danilo. Now with Danilo, he's going up against Mike Rodriguez, who, coming off a very unfortunate loss to Ed Herman. But getting back to Danilo and why I think he's bad. Most people know him as the jiu-jitsu coach of one Shogun Hua. He has a black belt under Damian Maia. But if you go back and run his tape on the regional scene, it's quite tough to watch. The guy's striking does not look good at all. The only props I will give him is the fact that he was able to throw a couple like lead kicks out there. Some teeps looked good, especially considering his range and how tall he is. He's 6'6", which is absolutely insane. 77.5 range reach. Very tall guy, but just does not know how to use his range or his striking good at all. More often than not, his game plan is to get the fight to the ground and try to, pull off some sort of jiu-jitsu or some submission. However, he should be able to do it against guys that on the regional scene. Like, just for example, his third last opponent, Polimeno, the guy was 0-16. I went back and checked his record again now after that fight, and that fight was July of 2017. He went on to incur 4 more losses, still has yet to gather a victory. And we saw Danilo go out there and pull off an armbar against him in not even sure what round that was. And then after that, he goes out there, beats a 5-4-1 guy, and then about 2.5 years later, somehow makes his UFC debut. I'm sure something had to do with Shogun Hua or his manager kind of whispering into the ears of these guys. But the guy's just not good. Like, even with his jiu-jitsu, we don't see it as high level as we would expect it to be, considering that's probably his only positive trait. But he's in here for a tough one. And even in his fight against Myron Dennis, now a lot of people look at that and be like, oh, split decision loss for Danilo. Why didn't Myron go out there and finish him if his striking it really isn't that good? But if you go back and watch that fight, it seemed like Myron was either super hesitant about the takedowns, because he was definitely not putting his full effort into those punches and those kicks. Like, it seemed like he was more so just throwing them out there to kind of keep Danilo on the outside. However, he just wasn't able to do much damage there. We saw Danilo get the fight to the ground over and over again, and there was a solid case that he probably won that fight too. But here, against slow Mike Rodriguez, he's going to be in for a world of hurt, in my opinion. That's the reason why I see the line at minus 225, which is weird actually, because the line is starting to come back down, something I thought that it wouldn't do. What do we got? So we got Mike Rodriguez open at minus 260, come down to minus 225. Usually Bet Online is the first guys to get their lines out. So let's see what they had at that. Yeah, minus 240 down to minus 210. Now, I think people are just going to go back and look at that Herman submission and be like, oh, he got tapped out by 40-year-old Ed Herman. Obviously, he's going to go out there and get tapped by this Danilo Marques guy. And in terms of Danilo, I believe he's up there in age too. Yeah, he's 35. He just turned 35 in December. But yeah, the guy, he has his work cut out for him against Mike Rodriguez. If you guys remember that Herman fight, he pretty much finished him twice there. Yet Chris Taioni was just like, nah, let's see this dead body before we stop this fight. And then luckily for Ed Herman, he was able to survive that onslaught and then pull off a more victory of his own. But very unfortunate for Mike Rodriguez. It was good to see, going back and watching Dana White talk about that fight. He said he actually ended up compensating Mike Rodriguez because he truly believed the ref fucked him over there. If you guys remember, he hit him with a couple of knees in the clinch. Ed Herman goes down. The referee thinks that it's a low blow, and Ed Herman obviously continues to play with it, and even Mike Rodriguez is like, "What are you talking about? I didn't hit him. What do you mean time?" And then luckily for Ed Herman, he was able to stick it through and pull off a late submission victory. And I think he even thinks that he got away with the murder there. So uh, good for Ed Herman. But Mike looked great in that fight. Even before that fight, goes out there and finishes Marcin Prachnio. Beautiful elbows in the clinch. Shows that he has a lot of power, and I think that's what's going to be key here against Danilo Marques. He is also a big light heavyweight himself. He's 6'4", 82.5-inch reach. But what I think is really going to come into play here is the southpaw versus orthodox stances that we got. So we got Danilo in the orthodox position. We got Rodriguez in the southpaw position. And one thing that I've kind of noticed from Danilo's game is, for some reason, he likes to have his hands up all the way up to his face, and I think it's more so due to maybe he was expecting like the barrage from Khadis to come nice and early. But as the fight went on, you saw a nice little pocket there under his elbow where I think that Mike Rodriguez would absolutely be able to target his body kick, something that he throws with such heat. And even in the clinch exchanges, man, his knees up the middle are just nasty. I just don't see how we see Danilo Marques stand up against this guy's striking. It's going to be very tough for him to eat those shots, for him to really close that distance without eating many shots. And even getting this fight to the ground, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult than people are expecting. Ed Herman, crazy chin, rock hard chin. So he was able to eat some of those shots. He completed 2 takedowns against Mike Rodriguez, whereas I think it's going to be a little bit harder for Danilo. Like, he's a good jiu-jitsu player or solid jiu-jitsu player, but his ability to get the fight to the ground is going to be his downfall. He's going to be able to complete it against guys like Khadis, but I think he's going to have a little bit of trouble dealing with guys like Mike. So I understand why the line is wide. I'm truly on board with Mike Rodriguez. I think his Muay Thai is going to be too much here. His elbows, his knees, his kicks up the middle. I could absolutely see this fight being finished by a body kick as well too, as I think that, like I said, that opposite stance here is really going to be key, and I think it's going to allow Marques or Rodriguez to really dig his kicks in and really get it going. Maybe start off with a couple leg kicks to really open up the inside leg kicks to really open up his kicks, and then just go to the body hard. And that's what I'm expecting here. I'd be surprised if we see Danilo actually complete a takedown and get him down and pull off a submission too, because I don't think that his submission game is really that high level. Even though he's a black belt, that doesn't always mean that he's going to go out there and get a submission victory. So I think people need to reel it back. Even though that Rodriguez lost via Kimura to Ed Herman last time around, again he beat the crap out of him before tiring out a little bit and allowing Herman to get that submission. I think if it was Danilo in that position, he might not have been able to muster up the energy to actually pull off that Kimura, which is why I'm really leaning with Mike Rodriguez here. I think that he just has Danilo pretty much beat everywhere other than having that black belt in jiu-jitsu, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a matter here. I think Rodriguez probably gets him out of there in that first or second round. It's going to be bad. It's going to be a really bad beating on the feet because Mike Rodriguez is just miles ahead of him there. Obviously looks much comfortable on the feet. Danilo just does not look that at all. So I'm going with Mike Rodriguez. I'm saying first or second round KO. I might even try to call my shot here. I think it's going to come from a body kick. Just having it as exposed as Marques does, and kind of like his length almost comes into as a flaw here because he has just so much body to work with and such a big target for Rodriguez and his kick. So once again, I'll go with Mike Rodriguez to win this fight via first round KO.